Hi, this is Mark Wade from CenterCityCondos.com at Berkshire Hathaway, Fox & Roach Realtors. And in this video, I'd like to educate you a little bit about some of the units at Naval Square and looking at their sales history and how they're trending over the past 3 years. Now, the units I've picked out are all flats. None of these are bi-level, and all these are in the moderate-sized buildings. You know, at Naval Square, we have some stacked townhouse condos where floors 1 and 2 are one unit. Floors 3 and floor 4 are another unit. What I'm showing here are just different buildings, medium-sized buildings on Naval Square, and looking at the price differences and explaining why we're going to see a swing in values in some of these. So if we go back 3 years and we look at, let's start at 500 Admiral's Way. That's the main building. That's the largest building at Naval Square that sits on the grounds. We'll see values, and both of these are relatively the same time period, from 532 to 605. What's going to account for the difference here is that since Naval Square, and especially 500 Admiral's Way in particular, was the first building to be finished on Naval Square. So we'll see the fit and finish of those to be a little bit older than some of the newer buildings. So we'll see dollars per square foot go from 483 to 482. These are recorded sales. Now, both of these are on the first floor. I recently sold a unit in this building in 500 Admiral's Way, top floor corner unit, that sold for significantly higher, sold in the mid sixes. And the reason why, it did have an extra den, so the square feet was a little bit larger, but the dollar per square foot would have been over $500 per square foot. So really at 500 Admiral's Way, I think what we're seeing here is going to be a difference in whether or not it's a first floor unit or a top floor unit, and whether or not the unit has is a corner unit, non-corner unit. Some of the units have garage parking. Some of the units in this building are just out in the open. Okay, so that'll account for a little bit of the difference. Next, let's go down here to 600 Commodore Court. This is a newer building. 600, 700 Commodore's Court, and 800 Admiral's Way. These buildings are all very similar in the fact that they each hold about 40 to 50 units, and they're 5 stories tall, done very nicely. And these are, as the numbers get larger, from 5 to 800, they get newer. So 800 Admiral's Way is the newest one on the property. But 600 Commodore's Court, we're going to see prices from 585 to 685. Now, what may account for a little bit of the difference is some appreciation, because Naval Square has been appreciating on a yearly basis. And here what we see is, although this one's just a little bit larger, we see a $100,000 sale price difference. I'm going to attribute that to time, one sold in 2023, one in 2025, and also the fact that interior condition is going to play such a huge role in any building that's nearing 20 years old, because we'll see some units that have perhaps been rented out and to tenants, and maybe the unit's a little bit beat up on the interior, where other units, after 20 years, some of them will have newer kitchens or newer bathrooms or flooring or something like that. So that's really going to account for the difference in a building like 600 Commodore Court. Same thing with 700 Commodore Court. We're going to see in the same time frame, $50,000 difference. It's about 10% in sale price, and that's going to be a function of interior condition. Lastly, 800 Admiral's Way. This is our newest building, and that's a pretty interesting swing for roughly the same square footage. This one is a year later, so maybe a little bit of appreciation, but I think most of that probably is going to be the view, which direction the unit faces, and whether or not it was a corner unit. So there you go. So there are a number of factors at Naval Square that are playing into value and dollar per square foot sales, and that would be primarily interior condition, which direction the unit faces, and whether or not the unit is a corner unit or not. Some other things that, real quick, that may detract from value is if it's a first floor unit, that generally doesn't sell for as high dollar per square foot, if everything else is the same, as a top floor unit. And some of these, whether or not they have outside parking or garage parking. So anyway, there are a lot of variables that play into value at Naval Square. If you'd like to learn more, I'd enjoy teaching you more. Maybe perhaps we could do a deep dive into some of these units and really get down to the nitty gritty and see why there is a spread in dollar per square foot for roughly the same units. Okay, so anyway, this is Mark Wade. If you'd like to learn more, drop me an email or give me a call, 267-237-3404. Certainly no pressure, but I'd enjoy doing a deep dive into some of these units and teaching you more. Have a great day. Bye now.